Part 63. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 621. Now that he had this idea, the next step was to come up with a perfect plan to deal with the enemy. Xian Yuanyao had the advantage of being with Rong Yu for 5 years, and he knew a lot about him. Xiejin tried to figure out where his master's weaknesses were by asking him what weaknesses he had, which of riding, archery, and swordsmanship he was best at, and which of martial arts, light skills, and weapons he was not so good at. Xian Yuanyao recalled them one by one, and then found out sadly, "I don't know what the master's weaknesses are." Xiejin was silent. "For now, the only weakness is Her Majesty the Queen," Xian Yuanyao said. "It is well known that Her Majesty the Queen is the master's Achilles heel. Unless Her Majesty the Queen is taken hostage, otherwise." Xiejin's expression suddenly became strange. "Yao Yao. Take Her Majesty the Queen as a hostage?" He just wanted to challenge how powerful the master's skills were, and he didn't intend to really risk his life. Dare to attack Her Majesty the Queen? Let alone put it into action. As long as he dared to show this idea in front of the master, he would be killed instantly without a burial place. "I just said that. I didn't really want to take Her Majesty the Queen hostage." Xian Yuanyao frowned and looked at Xiejin as if he was looking at a fool. "Do you think I'm a fool?" Xiejin laughed and didn't argue. "Think about it again." Xian Yuanyao frowned. "I can't think of it no matter how much I think about it. Anyway, I know that my archery skills were taught by the master. At the beginning, the master taught me to practice from 1 arrow to 2 eagles to 6 arrows in a row. The ability to shoot a willow through 100 steps depends on the eyes and arm strength. I also learned spear skills from the master. At first, I was knocked off the horse within 10 moves. I wanted to curse several times, but I didn't dare to curse the master. I cursed the uncles in my father's camp. They praised me every day, but the result was not shameful enough." Xiejin couldn't help feeling funny and distressed. He wished he could go back to Xian Yuanyao's youth to experience the unforgettable years that this proud and wanton boy had experienced, and give him some comfort after he suffered setbacks. Unfortunately, time goes by and never turns back. Those precious and tormenting years have nothing to do with him. Fortunately, I practiced and sparred frequently, and slowly I was able to hold on to 20 rounds, and then 30 rounds. Xian Yuanyao sighed. "Anyway, I made progress little by little, but it feels like an unattainable luxury to surpass the master." After he finished speaking, he continued, "Not to mention the tactics of war. When I played chess with the master, I was taught with a cane. If I lost, I would be beaten directly. My hands were so swollen that I couldn't hold the chess pieces. It was extremely painful to eat and write." Xiejin felt more and more distressed as he listened. It was hard to imagine how Xian Yuanyao persisted. "Although the master is strict, he always teaches me everything he knows." Xian Yuanyao looked up at the sky, with a unique youthful light in his eyes, a look of gratitude, respect, fear, and nostalgia. "When I was in Huainan before, I always thought I could be the most powerful general in the world, but when I came under the master, I found that the 3 words most powerful are easy to say, but it is really difficult to do, and there is no possibility of realization at all." After a pause, his tone was relieved. "But as long as you are a general who can be recognized by the master, you will be able to stand on your own and make people in the world afraid." Xiejin felt bitter. First, he really felt sorry for him, for the hardships he had suffered in those years. Second, he was really jealous, and wished that time would go back 5 or 6 years ago so that he could also participate in his youth. At that time, there was no Xiejin by Xian Yuanyao's side, and there was no queen by the master's side. The two of them talked most about military camps, martial arts, military tactics, sand tables, chessboards, archery. Although it sounds boring and even makes people feel particularly hard and tormented day after day, these are topics that only military generals have, and other people can't get involved at all. Military generals' ambitions and aspirations are usually not empathized by civil officials. Xian Yuanyao once wanted to be the best in the world so badly, but in the end, time taught him how to be a man, and in the process of growing up, he gradually realized that the most important thing in life is not the light of first or second place, but the faith in his heart. Following faith can make him stronger day by day. Xiejin silently looked at his profile, bright, proud, and energetic. Speaking of the tragic experience in the past, there was no haze between his eyebrows, but a particularly charming brilliance was shining, which made people intoxicated. Xiejin knew very well that Rong Yu's position in Xian Yuanyao's heart could never be replaced by anyone in this life. It was a kind of admiration from the deepest part of the soul, just like mortals looking up to gods. Thousands of years of tempering had planted a deep-rooted submission in his heart. Xiejin was a little jealous, but he knew better than anyone that he really had no right to be jealous of such a thing. The little leopard could be so outstanding today, shining brightly, and even blinded this fox who never cared about anyone. His master had made an indelible contribution. If the little leopard grew up in Huainan, he could certainly be excellent, but his level of excellence would be at most the second king of Huainan, and it would take years of experience and precipitation. Maybe he would be qualified to take over the military power in his father's hands when he was 30 years old. Of course, it is also possible that he would be better than his father, but if things are all assumptions, and no one knows whether that will be the result. But the result in front of him is not an if, but a fact that has really happened. His master has used strict means to train a young general. He is proud, strong, open-minded, principled, has a bottom line, has a tolerant mind, and has beautiful qualities. He is full of heart-moving light. Xiejin felt speechless and sighed softly, with admiration in his tone. Yao Yao is actually very powerful, there is no need to be the best in the world. I think so too. Xian Yuanyao nodded. So you are asking me about the master's weakness now. I think it would be faster for you to ask the master directly. Xiejin stroked his chin and thought, although I think the possibility of defeating the master is almost negligible after what you said, I still can't help but want to give it a try. After all, the strong always make people want to challenge. Yes, Xian Yuan nodded, agreeing. Let's think about countermeasures. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbspeed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 622. The weather is good and the weather will be fine and sunny for the next few days. The journey back to Beijing when the imperial guards escorted the prisoners was uneventful, and nothing unpleasant happened. However, May was already the beginning of summer, and the weather was getting hotter towards the end of the month. The sunny weather would only add to the suffering. The imperial guardsmen were wearing silver armor, and the hot sun was making people sweat. The people sitting in the prison cars were even more uncomfortable. They were all haggard. For them, the huge gap from being a rich lady to a prisoner was just a matter of time. Like falling from heaven to hell, the despair and desolation that surrounds you can destroy all hope of a person. All the eyes revealed were deathly silence. Carrying the mighty prison car, the speed of the journey was naturally much slower. Fortunately, the journey went smoothly without any accidents. Xiejin and Xian Yuanyao were happy to enjoy their leisure time behind them. Xiejui is really interested in Little Leopard's past. Although he is always very distressed, he can't stop listening to it. The more he listens, the more he wants to know more. Of course, in exchange, he would occasionally intersperse stories about his childhood, just to adjust the atmosphere. The two of them walked and talked all the way, uncovering the interesting and embarrassing things about their childhoods. For example, Xian Yuanyao was later punished by Rong Yu. For a long time, he was as obedient as a cat. He would practice archery whenever he was asked, and he would never miss a quarter of an hour after 4 hours. He didn't dare to slack off at all. If he was told that there would be a drill in the military camp the next day, he could stay in front of the sand table all night without sleeping. Of course, at that time, if Xian Yuanyao had any doubts in his heart, he would dare to ask for advice, and he would not do it again. I think that's a shameful thing. For example, Xiejin was beautiful when he was young. Several concubine brothers in the family laughed at him for looking like a little girl, wondering if his mother had not given birth to a son, so they raised the little girl Xiejin as a son. At a young age, Xiejin was not annoyed or angry, and sued his father on his own. His reasons were very good and there was no nonsense. The core sentence is just one sentence: the concubine brothers openly mocked and insulted the mistress and the legitimate son, and made false accusations. The brothers did not expect that he would go directly to his father to complain, and they were trembling with fear. Xie Xiaofu asked Xiejin what he wanted to do with them, but Xiejin was kind. I want to see my brothers in skirts. They must be very charming. By the way, go into the water and catch me some koi. I'll ask the kitchen to add food in the evening. Of course, koi cannot be used to add vegetables, but the ninth young master cannot disobey his request. Who dares to say anything? Unfortunately, it was late autumn, and the lake was not frozen but was bone-chilling. The 7-year-old Xiejin stood leisurely on the pontoon with a smile and kindness on his face, despite the resentful and murderous looks of several concubine brothers. Watching them change into skirts one by one, he praised, "Brothers are really beautiful." At that time, several of the Xie family's concubines wanted to push Xiejin into the water and drown him, so as to end this scourge once and for all. However, they didn't dare. Not only did they not dare, they had to obey his wishes. They wore the skirts that women only wear in summer and walked into the water shivering. As soon as they entered the water, their faces turned pale and their lips turned pale from the cold. Ching! The koi carps were so frightened that they fled in all directions. A few bastards tried their best to catch 1 or 2 koi carps, but Xiejin was either too big or too small, or else he thought the color was not good looking and would disturb the cook. Play. All in all, they forced several bastards to freeze in the water for nearly half an hour. Their bodies were stiff from the cold, their limbs were numb, and they were about to die. When they begged for mercy, their teeth chattered so much that they could hardly speak a complete sentence. Xiejin Ke showed mercy and asked, "Brothers, do you like the skirts you are wearing? Dare they say they don't like it?" Although their hearts were filled with anger, their mouths were trembling with coldness. Hi, 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 I like it. As long as the brothers like it. 7-year-old Xiejin smiled particularly cheerfully. Then next time I want to see my brothers wear it, I hope they won't reject me. The brothers really wanted to reach out and drag him down and drown him in the lake. But there are several Xie family guards with strong martial arts standing on the pontoon. Anyone who dares to take action will just stay in the lake to feed the fish today without going up again. Brothers look particularly beautiful in their skirts standing in the water. Xiejin praised, "They look like playful beauties, they look like hibiscus emerging from the water." There are no words to describe the expressions of the concubines, because they are all so cold that they can't even see their expressions except green and white. When Xiejin finally showed mercy and allowed them to come up, several of them had cramps in their legs and feet and had been dragged out by the guards. How cruel! Xian Yuanyao was speechless after hearing this. "Ajin, your cruelty is really deep in your bones." Xiejin glanced at him. "What Yao Yao said, should I be bullied and not fight back?" Xian Yuanyao choked and smiled, "Not really. I'm different from Yao Yao," Xiejin said indifferently. "As the legitimate son of a powerful official in the imperial capital, without some scheming and means, you can't survive in that circle, let alone make people fear you. They don't fear you, they will try to bully you more and more." Human nature is like this. It flatters the superior and suppresses the inferior. It bullies the good and fears the evil. Even if his father can protect him, sooner or later there will be places where he cannot be protected. Only by becoming stronger can he protect himself and make others afraid. Xian Yuanyao was silent for a moment, then nodded slowly. Ajin is right, different environments are destined to have different ways of survival. There is not so much intrigue in the military camp, so I always ignore the power struggle and the horror of human nature. Xiejin looked at him leisurely. Yao Yao will also integrate into the environment of the imperial capital in the future. Although the military camp is still the main focus, sometimes it is inevitable to face some annoying things. I will protect you then, don't worry. I'm not worried, Xian Yuanyao replied subconsciously, even if there is no you. Xiejin curled his lips and smiled. Yao Yao, speak nicely. Xian Yuanyao wanted to say that even without you, I still have a backer, but when he saw Xiejin's beautiful face like a fox, he suddenly thought of his current relationship with Xiejin, and turned a corner. Well, with you here, there is nothing to worry about. Xiejin was very pleased to hear this, and his expression was obviously happier. Yao Yao is so good. Xian Yuanyao wanted to sneer, but the corners of his mouth did not turn down, but instead curved upwards, with a touch of arrogance in his eyebrows. Although the weather was a bit hot, for Xiejin and Xian Yuanyao at this time, they really hoped that time could pass slower, and it would be better if they could walk a month on the road back to the imperial capital. But although they had this idea, they could not stop Chu Hongii from wanting to return to the imperial capital as soon as possible, so that it only took half a month to escort the prisoner back to the imperial city on the 4th day of June. Author has something to say. Good night. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 623. The prisoners were taken to the prison, and Chu Hongii, Xiejin, and Xian Yuanyao went to the palace to report. Chu Hongii walked in front of the two of them. Her black military uniform made her look particularly slender and tall. For a woman, she really had a bearing that no one could match. That's great. Xian Yuanyao's eyes fell on her back, with a smile of pride on his face. The outstanding generals of Dongling are all from the Xian Yuan family. Look at General Chu's outstanding and fierce aura. Prince Qi is so lucky. Xiejin tilted his head to look at him. In the inner courtyard of the palace, in public, he resisted the urge to reach out and pinch his cheek, and smiled faintly. Are they all from the Xian Yuan family? Of course. Xian Yuanyao glanced at him. Chu Hongii is now the daughter-in-law of Prince Qi, so of course she is from the Xian Yuan family. What do you think? Xiejin's hands itched more and more. Whose family is Yao Yao from? Xian Yuanyao said calmly, the Huainan Wang family. Xiejin paused. Ajin is also from the Huainan Wang family. Xian Yuanyao continued, don't forget that you are my wife. Xiejin was silent, then curled his lips. Well, Yao Yao is right. So I said that the generals are all from the Xian Yuan family. What do you think? Xiejin shook his head. No opinion. Yao Yao is right. Xian Yuanyao snorted, barely satisfied with his attitude. All the way to Dajhan Palace, after the palace servants reported, the three entered the palace together. Rong Yu sat in front of the imperial desk to read the memorials, while Her Majesty sat beside him, grinding ink very elegantly, as if she had found an interesting job for her boring life as an empress. The three of them respectfully performed the great ceremony of monarch and minister. Stand up. Nan 11 turned around and said in a gentle tone, you all worked hard. Xiejin and Xian Yuanyao almost sighed in their hearts that Her Majesty was really gentle. No wonder the master has been with Her Majesty for a long time and his temperament has been softened so much. Such a woman, no matter what her status, can relax when getting along with her. Xiejin couldn't help thinking, if the master can handle government affairs in the Dajhan Palace in the future, why do they need to worry all day long? I'm afraid those ministers will feel at ease. The 9 clans of the Yun family have 559 people, all on the list. Chu Hongii said. The youngest of the direct line, Yun Dai, and the direct son Yun Han have not yet married, so there are no children. In the collateral line, there is a 3-year-old child, 2 7-year-old children, and 2 young girls, one 9 and one 11 years old. Nan 11 raised her eyes and looked over. Where are those children now? Chu Hongii paused slightly. They are still detained in Shangning prison. The weather is hot now. I am worried that the young sons can't bear the hardship of long-distance imprisonment, so I left them all in Shangning. If the children are taken on the road, they will have to be taken care of separately, which wastes manpower and delays the journey. Moreover, Nan 11 was silent for a moment. Do these collateral branches have close contact with the main lineage? When this was said, not only Rong Yu looked up at her, but Xiejin and Xian Yuanyao were also quite surprised. They were all extremely smart people, and naturally understood the meaning of Her Majesty's words. Chu Hongii replied, the collateral branches are protected by the power of the main lineage, and they can naturally get some of the glory and wealth, but the important secrets of the main lineage, except for a few close confidants, most of the others know nothing about it, let alone participate. Your Majesty, Xiejin said, I have carefully checked the power base of the Yun family. The list of the main culprits is in one book, the list of the accomplices is in another book, and the list of other implicated people is in another book. Your Majesty can take a closer look and you will roughly understand the distribution of the Yun family's power. Rong Yu took the list they submitted in advance and handed it to Nan 11. The Dajhan Palace fell into a brief silence. The punishment of killing 9 clans is too cruel and not conducive to a prosperous and peaceful era. Nan 11 said calmly, all direct descendants of the Yun family will be killed, all accomplices will be killed, and all adults within the 3 clans will be killed. Chu Hongii was silent. Xiejin and Xian Yuanyao did not speak either. Nan 11 looked through the list and crossed out the names of several children with a red pen. Children under 8 years old within the 3 clans will be sent to the palace and trained as secret guards. Your Majesty, Xiejin frowned slightly, if you don't get rid of the roots, there will be endless troubles. There has never been a saying that children should be executed. Nan 11 pondered for a moment. If they are not sent to the palace, they will not be able to survive. If they survive by chance, the trouble may be even greater. 11er is right, Rong Yu said. If they are sent to the palace and watched under our noses, they will not cause any trouble. Xiejin was silent. There is no problem in training secret guards. Xian Yuanyao frowned. Secret guards receive special training methods from childhood. When they grow up, most of them are ruthless and desireless, and it is difficult for them to cause any harm. Besides, the seeds of hatred have not yet grown in the hearts of young children. In the later stage, they will be placed in the secret guard camp for training. They will pass 5 levels and kill 6 generals. They will have no 7 emotions and 6 desires. All kinds of emotions can be completely polished away. There is nothing to worry about. Xiejin thought about it and it was not wrong. It's settled at this time. Nan 11 raised her eyes. Isn't Qian Yuanhua in charge of revising the book now? The criminal law can be revised as appropriate. Some unreasonable old laws of Shenkei are no longer suitable for the present. Rong Yu called Qing Yang, send Xian Yuanhua to the Qinzhen Palace later, and I will discuss with him now. Yes. The law needs to be improved. Severe punishments are not suitable for wise rulers in prosperous times. Rong Yu had the idea of revising the criminal law before, but he never made time. If the other innocent collateral relatives have little to do with the Yun family's direct line, they should be pardoned. Nan 11 closed the files and the list, especially the elderly, the weak, women and children, give them a way out, but their descendants within 3 generations are not allowed to enter the government. Grace is given, and restrictions should also be put in place. Even if this is still a bit unreasonable, it can try to prevent some people from taking advantage of the remaining influence to make a comeback, or disrupt the officialdom, and have other thoughts. Your Majesty is wise. After listening to Nan 11's decision, Xiejin, although still somewhat disagreed, sincerely admired it. It is a blessing for the people to have the queen in Dongling. Nan 11 raised his eyes to look at him and smiled casually. Mr. Xie is really good at talking. It's my duty. Regarding the affairs of the Yun family and the Su family, several people discussed for a while, each expressing their opinions and views, without a one-man show, but just expressing their insights and suggestions, in order to better govern the world in the future and treat the subjects well. Of course, the way of benevolence only applies to loyal officials and the common people of the world. Certain laws of torture are still reserved for those who commit crimes. Only by combining kindness and severity, being kind when it is time to be kind and cruel when it is time to be cruel, can corrupt officials and incompetent officials be deterred and the world be clear. Near noon, Yin Yu came in to report, Your Majesty, the little prince is dismissed. Nan 11's face softened, let them in. Yes. Xian Yu and Qi walked in holding Hao bowed and saluted, and put the little guy on the ground. The baby, who was only 15 months old, stood quietly alone for a while, turned his head, looked up slightly, and looked at Xiejin and Xian Yuanyao with his clear and dark eyes. He found that he didn't recognize them, and then turned to look at Chu Hong'ai. He still didn't recognize them, so he calmly withdrew his gaze. He walked towards Nan 11 with his calves swaying, his voice soft and sticky, Mom. Nan 11 stood up, opened her arms and hugged her son, kissed him hard on his pink face. How is so good. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbs feed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 624. Xiejin and Xian Yuanyao stood quietly aside, looking at the little prince's face that looked like Rong Yu, thinking that he really looked more and more like him as he grew older, and they were just carved from the same mold. I wonder if his temperament will be the same as the master's when he grows up. Just as this thought flashed through his mind, he saw the little prince turned his head to look at Rong Yu, and stretched out his little arm towards him. Father. Xian Yuanyao's eyes widened. Rong Yu didn't say anything, stretched out his hand to take his son from Nan 11's arms, and said in a faint voice, What did you learn today? Xiejin raised an eyebrow. The little prince seemed to have just turned 1 year old, and he started taking exams. The master really lived up to his reputation of being strict, and he made no exception for his own son. But Hao didn't seem to understand this sentence. When he was in his father's arms, he stretched out his hand to grab his hair, and his 5 white and tender little fingers tightly wrapped a strand of hair, as if he had got some interesting toy. Nan 11 and Xian Yuanqi were obviously used to seeing him like this, and their expressions were particularly calm. Your Highness, the Crown Prince performed well this morning and can clearly pronounce several words. Xian Yuanqi walked to stand beside Chu Hong'ai. I want to take a leave this afternoon, so that the little Crown Prince can also rest for half a day. It is obvious that there is no need to say much about how well the little Crown Prince performed. After all, a child over 1 year old is not yet articulate, and is obviously not yet at the level of being able to read the 3-character classic fluently. Well means that he can handle it completely. After Xian Yuanqi's 3 months of teaching, Hao can accurately and clearly call out a series of simple titles such as Dad, Mom, Father King, Grandma, Auntie, and can accurately match these titles with people. As for other slightly more complicated ones, such as Grandmother and Mother Queen, formal royal titles have not yet started to learn, but judging from today's pronunciation, it is indeed good. And because Nan 11 has always advocated learning while playing before the age of 3, and playing is more important than learning, Xianyuanqi's teaching progress is not fast, so that Hao will not feel tired while learning, and will not have any disgust or unpleasant feelings, so as to cultivate children's interest in learning and develop a more open-minded and optimistic character. As for the matter of asking for leave, it was not a strange thing for Xianyuanqi, and everyone present knew why he wanted to ask for leave. His wife had been away for nearly a month, and he missed her so much that he asked for leave in the afternoon to accompany his wife. Everyone present was experienced and understood the feeling of missing her so much that Rongyu and Nan 11 would not refuse this small request, so Xianyuanqi quickly took Chu Hongii and left. Rongyu raised his eyes slightly and looked at Xiejin and Xianyuanyao. You two should go back and rest for half a day, and go to court on time tomorrow morning. Go to court? Xianyuanyao was silent for a moment, and hesitated to say, is the master going to reward us? Rongyu looked at him with a faint look in his eyes. Xianyuanyao coughed lightly and said embarrassedly, can I ask the master for a favor? No, Rongyu said calmly, leave. Xianyuanyao choked, and the baby died before he could finish his words. He dared not say anything, and looked at Xiejin quietly, and the two of them left obediently. Just as he was about to turn around, he heard Rongyu speak again, wait. The two turned their heads at the same time. Hao will be held by you to play for half a day. Rongyu came over and handed Hao in his arms to Xianyuanyao, no need to thank me, go. Xianyuanyao subconsciously reached out his hand, and was a little stunned when he took the child, hold it to play for half a day. Yes, Rongyu turned back to the table, lend it to you. Xiejin held his forehead, could he say he didn't need it? Just after returning to the imperial capital, he hadn't eaten yet, hadn't taken a bath yet, and hadn't had time to be affectionate with Yao Yao, and a little meatball was stuffed in his hand. The master really favored them. Xianyuanyao was staring at the little kid in his arms, and after staring for a long time, he realized that the kid was calmer than him, and didn't seem to be shy at all. Feeling a little curious, Xianyuanyao adjusted the way he held the kid and spoke softly, Your Highness. Hao looked at him quietly. Does Your Highness know me? Nan 11's mouth twitched, and her expression was particularly subtle. Hao opened her big, clean eyes like obsidian, still quiet and calm. Xianyuanyao was a little scared by her quiet look. After all, Hao looked almost exactly like Rongyu. When she looked at him silently like this, it was really a little scary. Xianyuanyao looked away and bowed to Rongyu and Nan 11, if there is nothing else, I will take my leave first. He turned his head and signaled Xiejin that it was time to go. The two who returned to the imperial capital after making great contributions, and the rewards had not yet come down, but they temporarily became the nanny duo of the little prince, which was simply, I don't know what to say. Nan 11 sat down in front of the imperial desk again, holding her chin with one hand, and looked at Rongyu with clear eyes, what are you planning again? Rongyu smiled, 11er is so smart, how could he not guess? Xiejin is smart and flexible, scheming and calculating, unconventional, often unpredictable, and hard to figure out. Nan 11's lips curved slightly, and her voice was calm and transparent, and Xianyuanyao is upright and open-minded, with the spirit of a military general, a heart of love for the people, and a mind of tolerance for others. As the saying goes, reading 10,000 books is not as good as traveling 10,000 miles. The meaning here is of course not to really travel 10,000 miles, but to broaden your horizons, increase your knowledge, and appreciate the various customs of the world. For a monarch, it means to see the dangers of the world as soon as possible, feel the suffering of the people, and experience the various forms of life. Unchanging learning cannot make ignorant children grow up quickly. Only enough experience can enrich their horizons, create a pattern, and slowly achieve the temperament and mind of a monarch. Xiejin is a fox. If Hao often follows him, he will understand that not all things need to be done according to the rules and procedures. Only by using tricks can you achieve twice the result with half the effort. Xian Yuanyao is upright and open-minded, with a principled bottom line. How can learn these likable qualities from him? After all, emperors are different from powerful ministers. They need to care about the world and the power of the emperor. Ayu, you are a father who is really far-sighted and makes people unconvinced. Nan 11 sighed, what you have prepared for your son is far more than this vast country. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 625. Xiejin and Xian Yuanyao walked out of the Dajhan palace. They were strangely silent for a long time, and their eyes fell on the face of the 15-month-old little kid. What does the master mean by this? Xiejin frowned rarely. Such a young child, who can neither visit brothels nor do horse stance, what are we going to do with him? Didn't you hear clearly just now? Xian Yuanyao glanced at him, and said in a subtle tone, the master said that he would lend it to us to play for half a day. It was because he heard it clearly that Xiejin felt more and more brain-twitching. Play for half a day? The status of the little prince is so noble. This is the only treasure of the master and the queen, the only heir to the Dongling kingdom, and the eyes of the ministers of Dongling. If he is accidentally bumped, it will make people tremble with fear. They just take him out of the palace to play for half a day? The little prince is not a toy. Xiejin raised his hand and pinched his eyebrows, thinking to himself, what happened to the calm and self-sustaining master today? Is he also playing a trick? It's really hard to guard against. Little Prince Xian Yuanyao didn't have as many thoughts as Xiejin. After the initial shock, he now calmly accepted the fact that the little prince was in his arms. Let's go out of the palace to play, you are not allowed to cry. Xiejin's mouth twitched. When we get to Prime Minister Xie's house later, I will prepare more delicious food for you. Xian Yuanyao looked at the exquisite little guy and discussed with him seriously, but there may be no milk. By the way, has the little prince been weaned? Xian Yuanyao turned to look at Xiejin. The master didn't seem to say whether he was weaned or not. Should we take the wet nurse to Xie's house? Xiejin's expression was a little hard to describe. He should be weaned, he is so old now. With the master's temperament of raising children, the little prince must be eating staple food now. But the staple food of children. Xiejin realized belatedly that he and Xian Yuanyao didn't ask anything just now. He didn't know whether the little prince had lunch or needed some snacks in the afternoon. If he is thirsty, what should he drink? Hot water? Fruits should be edible. Also, it seems that Xian Yuanqi has already started teaching the little prince, so should they review the lessons for the little prince in the afternoon? Xiejin walked along thinking that he didn't even have time to complain about the half-day holiday. His mind was full of how to deal with this delicate little ancestor. When he returned to the Xie family, as soon as he stepped into the door, he met Mrs. Xie who was about to go out. Huh, Mrs. Xie was stunned, then surprised. Jinner is back. Her eyes fell on Xian Yuanyao, and she smiled gently and lovingly. Yao Yao is here too. Xian Yuanyao greeted him humbly, hello, aunt. Mrs. Xie waved her hands repeatedly, no need to be polite. Yao Yao and I just came out of the palace and have met His Majesty and the regent. Xiejin said, where are you going, mother? Oh, the eldest princess asked me out. Mrs. Xie turned her eyes and met a pair of dark and beautiful eyes. Her voice couldn't help but get stuck, and then her motherly love bloomed, her eyes shining. Whose child is this? How can he be so beautiful? Like a fairy boy, let me hug him. Jinner, didn't you pick him up on the road? Hao grabbed Xian Yuanyao's hair and wrapped it around his fingers in circles. His clear and clean eyes turned away from Mrs. Xie's face, glanced at Xiejin, and then continued to deal with Xian Yuanyao's hair. That calm look seemed to say, this lady speaks so strangely. You are the one who picked him up. Xiejin couldn't help but twitch his lips again, and raised his head elegantly to the sky. Mom, Do you think that children can be found everywhere on the street, so it's easy to pick them up? That's right. Mrs. looked left and right, and felt that the child was really noble and delicate. The baby looks familiar, and there is a sense of familiarity that comes to my face, but I can't remember it for a while. The regent. What? Mrs. turned her head, wondering why he suddenly mentioned the regent. What's wrong with the regent? Siejin sighed, this child looks like the regent. Mrs. was stunned, then turned her head to look at the child's appearance, and it really looked like the regent. Then the regent's son, isn't he the current prince? Mrs. was shocked. Why did you take the little prince out of the palace? We'll talk about this later. Siejin walked towards the mansion. Mom, are you going to go out again, or dash? What do you want to go out? Mrs. changed direction. You must have been very tired during the 3 months you were out. Hurry back to Jinyuan and rest. I'll ask the kitchen to make more delicious food for you. And we have to arrange someone to take good care of the little prince. No need, Siejin said. Yao Yao and I will take care of the little prince. I don't trust others. Mrs. glanced at him with a strange look in her eyes. Can you do it? Xianyuan Yao said, don't worry, madam, the little prince is easy to take care of. From the time he was brought out of Dajhan Palace until now, the little guy has been playing with his hair, not crying or making a fuss, as if hair is so fun. Mrs. was half believing and half doubting, but she didn't say anything more and took people to the kitchen. Siejin and Xianyuan Yao returned to Jin Garden, went into the house and put the little prince on the bed. Haoer's little hands were still entangled in Xianyuan Yao's hair, pulling Xianyuan Yao's scalp so hard that it hurt. Siejin found it funny, and quickly reached out to rescue Xianyuan Yao's hair from the little guy's hands one by one, and then met Haoer's quiet and bright eyes. Your Highness. Haoer looked at him quietly. The young prince looks so much like the Lord. Xianyuan Yao became more and more frightened the more he looked at him. How can it be so similar? He is simply a smaller version of the Lord. Siejin turned his head and looked at him. The young prince should call you uncle. Xianyuan Yao was stunned for a moment, then thought about it, and then he knelt down in front of the bed, his voice a little more gentle and loving. Your Highness, come here, call me uncle. Haoer ignored him. Recite after me, uncle uncle dash. Haoer still ignored him. This child's temperament seems to be similar to that of the Lord. Xianyuan Yao frowned. Look at him, he doesn't even like to laugh. I had never seen him smile when he was in the Taisho Palace just now. Although he was relatively close to Her Majesty the Queen and the Lord, he did have the demeanor of a calm young prince. Such a young child. Siejin thought of the words passed by the courtiers before and believed it. The young prince is the reincarnation of the Emperor Star. This statement is indeed true. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbspeed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 626. Xianyuan Yao looked at the calm and cool little man in front of him and nodded in agreement. He is indeed born with the demeanor of an emperor. He was calm and serious, just like his father. Yao Yao. Siejin turned his head. What did you want to ask the Lord for just now? Xianyuan Yao paused for a moment, then said in a light tone, nothing. Siejin narrowed his eyes. Yao Yao. Anyway, the Lord didn't agree. What's the use of you knowing? Xianyuan Yao took off Haoer's shoes, put him on the bed, let him play by himself, then stood up and looked at Siejin. Why don't you guess what I want to ask for? Siejin's lips curled slightly. Ask the Lord to grant us a marriage. You wish Xian Yuanyao sneered, even if you can't wait to become the daughter-in-law of the Huainan king's family, you have to pass my father's test first. Ask the Lord to grant us a marriage when the situation is unclear? Do you think I'm not afraid of death? Xiejin curled his lips, I was moved for a long time just now. Xian Yuanyao put his hand on his shoulder, Ajin. Xiejin hummed. I think the master has ulterior motives. Xian Yuanyao was thoughtful, and his eyes involuntarily turned to the little prince's face again. He must have deliberately let us coax His Royal Highness the Crown Prince, taking this opportunity to let us see how cute children are, and then he also wants to have one dash. So Yao Yao wants to have a baby. Xian Yuanyao choked and shook his head slowly. I think it's okay to play for a while, but I don't want to take care of the child every day. Yes, Yejin's smile deepened, I don't want to either. You can't have a baby even if you want to. Xian Yuanyao turned his head to look at him. Didn't Zanruo say that you will never have children in this life? Ajin, do you have any hidden illness? Xiejin's expression froze. Xian Yuanyao was embarrassed and quickly let him go, I was joking. Yao Yao. Xiejin looked at him expressionlessly, do you want to try and see if I have any hidden illness? Xian Yuanyao looked slightly annoyed, the little prince is still here, you should be careful when you speak, don't lead the child astray. Didn't you say I have a hidden illness? Can't I just say it casually? Of course not. Xiejin frowned, this kind of thing hurts a man's dignity, can you just say it casually? Xian Yuanyao was displeased, then what if I said it? Do you still want to rebel? I dare not rebel. Xiejin pulled him over and blew in his ear, but Yao Yao, what I want to tell you is that hidden illness is a physical disease, and being destined to be childless is destiny, the two are completely unrelated. Xian Yuanyao was numb all over by his blowing, and his eyes turned and met the little prince's calm and cold eyes, as if the master was looking at him, and the blood in his body froze instantly, and he quickly reached out and pushed Xiejin away, be reserved for me. Reserved? Xiejin was silent for a while, not knowing what this word had to do with him, but he soon noticed Xian Yuanyao's reaction, and couldn't help but twitch his mouth. Yao Yao is right, the master is indeed ill-intentioned. Just a 15-month-old child can make Xian Yuanyao so afraid, what else can it be if not ill-intentioned? Half an hour later, Madame Xie brought people to Jinyuan and put all the prepared dishes on the table. Jin'er, Yao Yao, you guys have lunch first, and then, I'll hold the little prince for you. Xiejin and Xian Yuanyao looked at each other. Actually, it would be good to have someone to help them coax the child, and Madame Xie seemed to like Hao very much, but it's not possible. Didn't the princess make an appointment with mother? Xiejin came out with a leisurely expression, don't keep the princess waiting for too long. We can take care of the little prince ourselves. It will only take half a day, and we should send him back to the palace in the evening. Madame Xie saw her son's firm attitude and took a step back, then you eat first, I will also take care of the little prince and eat something. I will leave after you finish eating. After a pause, I will take care of him here and won't take him out. She knew what Xiejin was worried about. The Xie family has a complicated personnel. Although no one has dared to provoke them for a long time, they know better than anyone the truth of the sinister human heart. If someone has a rebellious mind and hurts the little prince, even if the murderer is cut into pieces, it will not change the consequences. The little prince is precious, and he must not take any risks. Since Xiejin and Xian Yuanyao brought him out of the palace, they naturally put him under their noses to feel at ease. Xiejin nodded and sat down to eat with Xian Yuanyao. Xie stayed in the inner room with Hao, and brought the lean meat porridge that she had specially asked the kitchen to cook, and fed Hao a little. Because Hao was still young, she asked the kitchen to cut the lean meat into very fine pieces to make it easier for the child to eat. After Xian Yuanyao and Xiejin had their meal, Xie said again, you have been tired from the long journey, do you want to take a bath and change clothes? Xiejin wanted to, and he especially wanted to take a bath with Yao Yao. but he was really worried about leaving the little prince alone here. Ajin, go take a bath first. Qian Yuanyao sat down on the side. I'll stay here to take care of the little prince. Mrsye hurriedly said, I can take care of him. It doesn't matter, Ajin, take a bath first, and I'll go after Ajin is done. Qian Yuanyao did not compromise on this point. Major men don't care so much, it doesn't matter if they are a little dirty. Xiejin nodded, thinking that it would only be one afternoon, and when he sent the little prince back to the palace in the evening, he could sleep in the same bed with Yao Yao, and there would be plenty of time to talk about private things. So the two of them tacitly decided to sacrifice this afternoon's good time and take good care of the little prince first. Xiejin went to take a bath, and Qian Yuanyao sat on the stool in front of the bed. Does the prince want to pee? Hao glanced at him. Qian Yuanyao then picked him up and went to the backyard. After a while, he came back with the child in his arms and heard Mrsye say, Yao Yao is quite experienced in taking care of children. Qian Yuanyao smiled, the prince can now speak some simple words, can walk, and can understand many things. He is much easier to take care of than a baby of a few months old. Mrsye's mouth curled up a little smile, even so, taking care of children is still not an easy thing for many men. Really, Qian Yuanyao thought for a while, maybe I am born good at it. Mrsye smiled happily, well, it can be seen that Yao Yao is a loving child. Qian Yuanyao frowned and muttered in his heart, did this mother-in-law see something? Ajin said before that his father already knew about what happened between them, so Mrsye should also know. I don't know what she thinks about this. Madame Xie seems to like children very much. If Xiejin doesn't have children, will she be very sad and disappointed? Thinking of this, Qian Yuanyao hesitated and said, Madame seems to like children very much too. Who doesn't like such a beautiful and lovely child? Madame Xie looked at Qian Yuanyao, is Yao Yao the only son? Qian Yuanyao said, I have a younger sister. Is your sister married? Not yet. Qian Yuanyao shook his head, I didn't go back this year, and I don't know if my mother has arranged a marriage for my sister yet. Madame Xie hummed, Jinner is also my only son. Qian Yuanyao's heart skipped a beat. His first reaction was that Madame Xie was going to break them up. Yes, the Xie family has many illegitimate sons, but for Madame Xie, isn't Xiejin the only son? Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbs feed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 627. A little guilt and a little uneasiness surged up in his heart for a moment, and Qian Yuanyao felt his heart suddenly contract and ache. He was silent for a moment, not knowing how to respond to this sentence, because he was not sure what Mrsye wanted to express. I am just an only son. Mrsye sighed, I love him as much as my own life. Qian Yuanyao's heart sank rapidly, and he could only nod stiffly. Most mothers in the world love their children as much as their lives. Madame is a good mother. Mrsye stared at this outstanding young man in front of her. It is truly a breath of fresh air among the heirs of the royal family. Whether it is the palace of Wei before its decline, the still prominent Prince Huai's palace, or the flourishing Prince Jing's palace, none of the eldest sons and young masters in the family are as comfortable as the young man in front of them. Not to mention the descendants of the royal family who are farther away. This young man just stood here casually, his figure as tall and straight as a pine tree, his eyes as magnanimous as a gentleman's, and the brows and corners of his eyes were full of joyful brightness, like the spring sun. There is no haze or darkness in him, and he is filled with bright sunshine, which is warm, comfortable and stress-free. No wonder his son was so devoted to him, his heart and eyes were filled with joy when he looked at him. A smile appeared on MRSC's lips. Yao Yao likes Jin'er. Xian Yuanyao was stunned for a moment, then pursed his lips and fell silent. Jin'er likes Yao Yao to the core, MRSC said with a smile. I have never seen him care so much about anyone. Xian Yuanyao frowned, unable to discern her intentions for a moment, so he said bluntly, I also like Ajin. MRSC raised her eyebrows. But if Madame objects to us being together, I will. What are you talking about? A voice sounded from behind, with a ghostly and dangerous aura. Did Mother and Yao Yao have a happy chat? I also want to hear what you said. Xian Yuanyao turned his head, and a Jin from the Xie family, dressed in a brocade white flowing light robe, walked over leisurely. Her hair was still a little damp after she just got out of the bath. Her face was so beautiful that it made people lose their mind, but her eyes looked, something bad. Xian Yuanyao frowned, can you talk properly? Why are you so arrogant? Weird and strange? The villain Yao Yao complained first. Xiejin smiled softly, I am young and my ears should be fine. I heard what Yao Yao just said, so don't deny it. What did you hear? Xian Yuanyao's handsome face sank slightly, and he decided to cheer up his husband in front of Madame Xie. I said that if Madame objects, I will kneel down and beg her to agree. Do you have any dissatisfaction with this? If you're not satisfied, then I've changed my mind. Then he said coldly, what answer do you want to hear? Just give up and have nothing to do with you from now on. Xiejin was stunned. Or do I have to marry a wife immediately so that my wife can rest assured and never bother you again? How dare you? MRSC suppressed her laughter and coughed lightly, Jin'er. Xiejin frowned and looked at his mother displeased. Yao Yao has a simple temper and doesn't have so many twists and turns in his mind. Mom can speak directly if she has something to say. Don't use words to trick him, or be careful not to scare him, he almost misunderstood. Tisk MRSC sneered, you haven't even written your horoscope yet, and now you're starting to protect yourself. Has the father-in-law ever had any trouble? Who said there are no more horoscopes? Xiejin put his arm around Xian Yuanyao's shoulders. For me, as long as Yao Yao likes me, everything else is not a problem. I will work hard to overcome any obstacles. After a pause, what Yao Yao just said is exactly what I want to say. If King Huainan doesn't agree, I will kneel down and beg until he agrees. Xian Yuanyao looked embarrassed and was about to reach out to push his claws away. He stopped when he heard these words and glanced at Xiejin unhurriedly. Father, it's not you who kneels down to beg for help. You can pass the test in just one sentence, you have to be mentally prepared. It's okay, Xiejin said calmly, the big deal is just getting slapped with a military stick, it's no big deal. Xian Yuanyao was soft-hearted and said nothing more. In front of MRSC, he was really embarrassed to say anything coaxing. How could he be as shameless as Xiejin? Okay, Xiejin patted him on the shoulder, go take a bath. I've asked someone to put the water for you, and the clothes are ready. Xian Yuanyao nodded slightly to MRSC, then turned around and walked back. Xiejin walked to the desk, took a book and handed it to Hauer, who was on the bed. Then he said slowly, are you satisfied, mother? Of course I am satisfied. MRSC held her chin, but Jin'er, I always feel that this matter is a bit sorry for King Huainan. Xiejin's expression paused. Mother Chang, do you really want me to have a psychological burden? I feel sorry for Yao Yao. MRSC sighed, what a good child, why was he snatched away by a fox like you? Xiejin's mouth twitched slightly. Mom, am I your biological child? I picked it up. MRSC stood up. Okay, you can handle your own affairs, and I will just join in the fun. Take care of the little prince, and I will go to the eldest princess's appointment. Xiejin stood in front of the door and respectfully sent his mother out. Recalling Yao Yao's words just now, I couldn't help but bring up a happy smile. He was such a cute little leopard, it was hard not to like him. Turning around and walking back to the inner room, he saw the little prince sitting steadily on the bed, holding the book that Xiejin had just handed to him, flipping through the pages one by one, and then flipping back one by one. Others read 10 lines at a glance, but he read 10 pages at a glance. Fortunately, he didn't tear off a single page. Normally, this child is at the age of strong hands-on ability, tearing and biting anything he catches, like a hamster. In contrast, the little prince is really quiet, and the quieter he is, the more people feel that he has completely inherited wrong-use temperament, and his natural temperament is really not fake at all. Xiejin sat at the head of the bed and sighed, "Your father abused his power for personal gain and bullied others, which really made us unconvinced. The little prince must not learn this trick in the future." If Xian Yuanyao was here at this time, he would definitely laugh at him for not daring to protest in front of his master. It was really difficult for this fox to complain to a child at this time. Hauer looked up at him, but didn't react. He quickly lowered his head and continued to fight with the book in his hand. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 628. Taking care of a child was the first time for Xiejin and Xian Yuanyao, but fortunately Hauer was easy to take care of, he didn't cry or make a fuss, and he was particularly worry-free. Except that Xian Yuanyao felt stressed every time he saw that calm and steady face that always reminded him of his father. There was really nothing difficult about it. The two of them took Hauer to sleep in the afternoon. Children over 1 year old normally need to make up for their sleep during the day, and it happened that Xiejin and Xian Yuanyao were also a little tired. The main reason was that they couldn't be alone together, and it was always not good to be too intimate in front of the child, so they couldn't help but feel a little tired out of boredom, and of course they had to make up for their sleep after being tired. So the two of them faced inward and outward, and put Hauer in the middle. At first glance, they really looked like a family of 3. They slept until the sun set. After Xiejin woke up, he felt refreshed. He couldn't help but think, "Yao Yao." Xian Yuanyao had already sat up and was looking down to see if Hauer had wet the bed. Hearing this, he only responded, "What's the matter? It's better to do it today than today." Xian Yuanyao was a little confused. "What's the difference between today and today? Take action tonight." Xian Yuanyao immediately understood what he meant and looked up at him. "Tonight?" Xian Yuanyao hesitated, "Are you sure?" "Sure." Xiejin moved his wrist. "Now we have enough energy. While the master is not prepared at night, we will take him by surprise. Maybe we can dash. Maybe we can win." Xian Yuanyao frowned slightly. "Isn't this an unfair victory?" Xiejin's expression was calm, and his tone sounded particularly righteous. "An unfair victory can at least be called a win, otherwise I'm afraid there will be no chance of an unfair victory." Xian Yuanyao thought about it and actually felt that what he said made sense. If they can't win even by surprise, they probably won't have a chance to defeat the master in this life. So the matter was settled. The two of them got up to wash up, and washed Hauer by the way, and then had dinner in advance. When everything was ready, it was dark outside. Xiejin took 2 black tights and handed one to Xian Yuanyao. Xian Yuanyao stared at the night clothes in front of him. His expression was particularly tangled. "Are we going to kill the king?" In the middle of the night, night clothes usually represent assassination. Is Xiejin's outfit too formal? Of course not to kill the king. Xiejin glanced at him. "What is Yao Yao thinking? If I really want to kill the king, would I dare to take you with me? Don't play too much. What if the fake play really becomes real and people really think you are an assassin? Then you won't be able to explain it." Xian Yuanyao frowned. "And it's so mobilizing so many people. If we lose, I'm afraid we won't be able to leave the imperial study." When mentioning the imperial study, Xiejin hesitated for a moment. To be honest, he was confident that the master would not take it too seriously, and he would not be punished even if he really attacked by surprise, but he was not confident that he would not be punished. If he and Yao Yao were defeated together, the master would definitely think that they were not good enough in martial arts. Moreover, Xiejin still remembered clearly that after being beaten in the imperial study last time, Rong Yu said that he wanted to practice his skills. If he went to the door this time, would he be directly dragged to practice? Actually, I don't think civil officials have to have such good skills. Xian Yu and Yao looked at him. Just do your own job well and protect yourself with martial arts. You don't plan to be the best in the world, so why do you need such high martial arts? Xiejin looked at him silently. Look at the master's subordinates, whether they are civil officials or military generals, who is weak? Xian Yu and Yao frowned. Is Chu Nanyi also good at martial arts? In addition to his martial arts, he is good at medicine and accounting, and he is good at many other things, Xiejin said calmly. Otherwise, why do you think he, a bastard of the Chu family, was entrusted with such an important task by the master? Juxiao Pavilion is a place to subdue dragons and tigers. Without any skills, how can he be in the eyes of his master? The two changed their clothes and put on a robe outside the black nightgown. Without any delay, they quickly picked up Hauer and went out. Your Highness the Crown Prince is so well behaved today, so easy to take care of. Xian Yu and Yao walked aside, looking at Hauer, who was sitting in Xiejin's arms and playing with his hair again, and couldn't help wondering, but other children of this age seem to like small toys like rattles. Why does the Crown Prince have a special liking for hair? Xiejin said, you can try to let him tell you the answer. Xian Yu and Yao curled his lips. If the little Crown Prince could tell him the answer now, he would not be a child prodigy but a god. The two took a carriage into the palace, went to the Dajhan Palace first, paid respects to Her Majesty the Queen, and then returned the little Crown Prince to Nan 11. The Lord has said that he would borrow the money for a long time, so I dare not delay for a moment and quickly send the little prince back. Xiejin said respectfully, Your Majesty, please check to see if the little prince has any bumps or scratches. After we leave here, we will not be responsible for anything else. Nan 11 smiled lightly. It sounds like you want me to inspect the goods in person. Xiejin became more respectful. I dare not. He did want to say that he would inspect the goods in person and would not be responsible after leaving, but this was the meaning, but he could not say it that way. After all, if he really dared to treat the little prince as goods, wouldn't he be courting death? Xiejin Nan 11 reminded him gently, it's a good thing that Hauer didn't get bumped or scratched. You took good care of him, and I and the regent are relieved. But even if I wronged you, do you think you can defend yourself? Xiejin was silent, and then he knew the situation and said, I dare not defend myself. So, wasn't what I said just now nonsense? Nan 11 drank a sip of tea leisurely. Even if I inspected the goods in front of you and told Rong Yu later, do you think Rong Yu would believe me or you more? He must believe Your Majesty. Xiejin was more respectful. I am stupid, Your Majesty is wise. Xian Yu and Yao stood aside, listening to the seemingly unfathomable but actually one-sided conversation between the monarch and the minister, and felt that Xiejin was a slut. Asking for trouble in front of His Majesty? His Majesty seems gentle, but he is the king of a country after all. Not liking to handle government affairs does not mean that he does not have the majesty of an emperor. What's more, His Majesty has a heavyweight husband by his side. Xiejin, are you sure you are good enough? The regent is in the imperial study, Nan 11 said with a smile. He said that after you send the prince here, go to the imperial study to find him. Imperial study. Xian Yu and Yao's face changed slightly. Didn't the master change to the Qinzhen Palace to handle government affairs? Nan 11 said, oh, her voice was very leisurely, I'm not sure about this, you can ask him yourself. Xian Yu and Yao didn't want to go. Xiejin didn't want to go even more. He now had a shadow on the imperial study. The two of them took their leave and left the Dajhan Palace. Standing in front of the palace gate and looking at each other, Xian Yu and Yao frowned. What is the master doing in the imperial study at this time? Maybe it's to scare us, Siejin said. We just made a contribution, and the reward hasn't come yet. It's not necessary to beat us up first. After saying this, he immediately felt at ease. Let's go. Siejin took the lead and said, if you stick your head out, you'll get a knife. If you hide your head, you'll get a knife too. It's no big deal. Author has something to say. Good night. The plot needs to develop step by step. It's impossible for us to let them get bored every day just because we are fans of this couple and ignore other people and other things. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 629. There were several guards on duty outside the imperial study, and Qingyang was also there. Siejin and Xian Yuanyao stopped far away, and the two of them looked silently in the direction of the brightly lit imperial study, as if they had made some important decisions. After a long time, Xian Yuanyao said, Ajin, your lightness skills are good. Yeah. I am good at long spears, close combat, and my fists and feet skills are a little more solid, Xian Yuanyao said, but we can't use weapons, and there are no long spears here. Siejin nodded. Using weapons would really be an assassination, which is serious, and it is not too much to deal with it immediately. But no matter how powerful my fists and feet skills are, I will not be the opponent of the master. Xian Yuanyao frowned, so you have to make good use of lightness skills, delay the master as much as possible, and distract the master's energy. Siejin nodded slowly. You attack the lower plate. Xian Yuanyao turned his head and stretched out his hand to hit him with a palm, and the two of them reached a tacit understanding of cooperation. Siejin said, I hope we can all walk out of the imperial study safely tonight. It doesn't matter if we can't, Xian Yuanyao said righteously, it's worth getting beaten up for a chance to challenge the master. Siejin nodded, heroes think alike. Xian Yuanyao laughed, feeling that this conversation was a bit like going to the execution ground. Yao Yao. Siejin curled his lips, I really want to kiss you. Xian Yuanyao took a deep breath, if we can win by chance tonight and walk out of the imperial study safely, I will let you kiss me enough when we go back. With Yao Yao's words, my confidence has doubled instantly, Siejin whispered in a low voice with a bit of low bewitching meaning, we will definitely win tonight. Xian Yuanyao clenched his hands and felt that his heart was about to jump out. He really had no confidence in whether he could win, and whether he could walk out of the imperial study was the key. A tacit understanding was reached, and the two of them raised their feet and walked towards the direction of the imperial study. Guard Qingyang. Siejin stepped forward with a friendly look, is the regent in the imperial study? Qingyang greeted him humbly, greetings to Master Xia and Prince Yao. Yes. Siejin nodded and lowered his voice, didn't the regent move government affairs to the Qinzhen Palace? Is he reviewing memorials in the imperial study now? Qingyang pretended to think, it seems not. Then it's so late. I don't know either. Qingyang was very tight-lipped, and no one could get him to say anything, the prince won't let his subordinates in. Siejin was silent, then nodded slowly, Prince Yao and I are going to go in and see the regent now. Go in. Qingyang made way very straightforwardly, my prince said that you two can go in directly when you come, no need to report. Siejin and Xian Yuanyao looked at each other, and they both felt that the situation was not good. However, since they were here, they could only bite the bullet and go in. The door of the imperial study was slowly opened. As Siejin stepped in with one foot, his eyes were like lightning. He had already begun to search for Rong Yu's location, and then he thought about the best direction to attack in advance. When he stepped in with the second foot, he saw a figure standing in front of the back window. His feet could not help but pause, and then he swept over like lightning. The palm wind was sharp, with a murderous aura. The tall figure standing by the window suddenly turned around. With a noble and indifferent face and solemn and cold eyebrows, Who else could it be except his master? Xian Yuanyao closed the door of the study with his backhand. At the same time, Rong Yu put his hands behind his back and moved his body slightly to the side, and easily avoided Xiejin's attack. However, Xiejin's palm missed, and Xian Yuanyao intercepted from the side in an instant. The two of them attacked from both sides, and their kung fu was solid. There was no intention of letting up in every move. Rong Yu's brows were cold, and he raised his hand to chop Xian Yuanyao. The strong palm wind blew across his cheek, bringing a sharp pain like a blade. Xian Yuanyao hurriedly dodged backwards, and Xiejin immediately followed up. Rong Yu didn't say anything, and his fingertips pressed Xiejin's acupuncture points like electricity, and a tingling sensation paralyzed his arm for a short time. Xiejin was slightly startled, and then he realized that the master had given him a flaw, and hurriedly adjusted his attacking moves. Xian Yuanyao came back and punched Rong Yu. The moves were spicy, fast and fierce. When the fist was about to hit Rong Yu's face, Rong Yu quickly blocked it like a gust of wind. Xiejin attacked from the other side, and Rong Yu's body slightly bent backwards, and his right foot kicked out like a meteor, directly kicking Xian Yuanyao's cheek. Xian Yuanyao was frightened and sweated, and once again retreated 3 steps in embarrassment. As soon as Xian Yuanyao retreated, Xiejin came up again. The two cooperated very well, but Rong Yu dealt with it very easily. After continuously pointing out Xiejin's flaws, he grabbed his arm at a very tricky angle and twisted it backwards, and kicked him at the knee, knocking him to the ground. The severe pain came, and Xiejin didn't even have time to react. He subconsciously wanted to break free, but found that Rong Yu didn't give him a chance to break free. His arm was tightly grasped in Rong Yu's hand. Not only did his knees hurt, but he also felt sore and weak. He couldn't stand up for a while. Xian Yuanyao came up again, punching vigorously, but Rong Yu was still able to deal with 2 people with ease. Now there was only one left, so why didn't he capture him easily? The wrist turned, and the shadow flew. The two fought for more than 10 rounds, and Xian Yuanyao had a hard time dealing with it. Every time he thought Rong Yu was going to knock him down with the next move, he would see a flaw and escape in time. After several moves, he also understood that this was the master deliberately letting him win, wanting to see how good he was. But the more Xian Yuanyao fought, the more panicked he became, because Rong Yu's expression had turned cold, and there seemed to be a layer of frost on his eyebrows, which was clearly a sign of displeasure. When Rong Yu ran out of patience and Xian Yuanyao was kicked to the ground, he heard the cold voice of his master, "You have been playing for 3 months and have not practiced your skills." The two people's faces changed at the same time. They wanted to get up and rub the place where they were kicked, but when they heard this, they knelt down and thought to themselves that they would be done for tonight. This is really the crime that he brought upon himself. Xian Yuanyao swallowed his saliva and found that the countermeasures he had discussed with Xiejin for half a day outside were a joke. He thought that although his martial arts could not be called the best in the world, he was at least a good general, and his master recognized him. He had seen Xiejin's martial arts in Shangning with his own eyes. He was a real master. Breaking into the Yun family's house at night was not a joke, and no one would joke with him about the lives of the whole family. However, at this time, the two of them joined forces, and they lost so quickly like a beginner. It was a complete defeat. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbspeed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 630. Xiejin's leg was in severe pain. He carefully rubbed it with his hands. When the numbness gradually eased, he tried to stand up. "Did you get up?" Rong Yu frowned. Xiejin instantly knelt back and looked up at Rong Yu. Your Majesty, Your Majesty. Together, I and Crown Prince Yao are no match for Your Majesty. I'm really ashamed of myself. Please forgive me, Your Majesty. Shameful, Rong Yu stood in front of the imperial case, his eyes falling on the two people in front of him, whose idea was it to sneak attack on me. Xiejindao and Xian Yuanyao almost said in unison, my idea. Rong Yu's face was expressionless. It isn't considered a sneak attack, Xian Yuanyao explained weakly, we just wanted to know how powerful the Lord is, but we were worried that we were no match for the Lord, so we came up with a surprise. Unexpected. Quite promising. Rong Yu's voice was indifferent, and there was no hint of emotion or anger. Should I be happy that you think so highly of me? Xian Yuanyao lowered his head and said respectfully, I know my mistake, please punish me. What is the punishment? Rong Yu asked. You are punished for the lower level and the upper level, with the intention of assassinating my king. Xian Yuanyao's scalp tightened. I have slacked off my martial arts due to punishment, but I dare to take advantage of others. I would never dare to take the charge of assassination. Since you have the idea of challenging me, I will let you have fun tonight. Rong Yu then graciously let them get up, turned around and walked out. Follow me to the school grounds. Well. Xiejin's expression froze slightly, and he turned to look at Xian Yuanyao. It seemed like he was playing a little too much. He would have to try out all 18 weapons before going to the school grounds. Their eyes met, and the two of them were silent, so they had no choice but to get up and follow. Their hunch was right, tonight was indeed not going to be easy. The inner court campus is where the Imperial Guards usually gather for training. It is located outside the Fengtian Gate. It has a wide terrain and is fully equipped with weapons. The two followed Rong Yu to the school grounds, only to find that there were many people on the school grounds at this moment, and Chu Hong'ai was also there. Rong Yu paused slightly. Torches were lit around the school grounds, and the flames illuminated the school grounds. Chu Hong'ai was sitting on the horse, with an aura that was unstoppable, and her voice was cold and angry. All those involved in the fight will not be able to complete 100 laps tonight, and tomorrow morning take off your military uniform, remove your military status and go back to nurse your child. Xiejin and Xian Yuanyao stood beside Rong Yu, frowning slightly as they looked at the people in front of them who shouldn't be in the school grounds. Xian Yuanyao looked around and calmly stepped forward to ask about the situation. The people watching from the outside of the school grounds did not recognize Xian Yuanyao for a moment. When someone asked, they casually replied, a few nobles are on duty outside the palace. The fight with the guards of Hanman got a bit big and alerted General Chu. When Chu Hong'ai heard the news, she rushed to the scene of the incident without a moment's delay. Without asking the reason, she said directly, since you all have nothing to do and need to vent your excess energy by fighting, let's go to the school ground, go practice. So all the people involved in the fight were brought to the school grounds, but it was obvious that these people were not convinced. Xian Yuanyao frowned slightly, glanced at everyone on the campus, turned back to Rong Yu, and briefly stated the matter. Someone in the Forbidden Army stirred up trouble, saying that there was a conflict between the noble clan children and the Hanman Guard. There was a fight outside, and General Chu brought it to the school field to deal with it late at night. The situation must be serious. After Chu Hong'ai took over the Imperial Army, although she was not on duty for a long time, she often came to the school grounds to gather all the Imperial Guards before going on duty in the afternoon to correct the previous laziness and slackness of the Imperial Army. The Imperial Guards guarding the inner city of the palace are all specially trained. They have a higher status than the Imperial Guards outside the palace, have more salary, and are more prestigious when they go out. Therefore, the noble families in the imperial capital will send their children in through connections, of course, although there are many of these people, but the proportion among the total Forbidden Army is not large. More of the Imperial Guards came from poor families. When the Supreme Emperor was in power, he once rectified the imperial guards. At that time, most of the imperial guards were children of the gentry who were dawdling around and earning salaries. Later, the Supreme Emperor decreed that young men from poor families should be selected to enter the palace for training, and the court would provide them with salaries. Those whose families were too poor to support their wives were parents who have many children will send their sons to the palace. The children of the noble clan were naturally reluctant to part with the hardships of training during their youth, and their salary was not much. They could only make ends meet while sending some more to their families. The children of the noble clan did not look down on them, so there was no dispute over interests. They officially joined the army after the training. After being banned from the army, you will get a little more salary. Some of the gentry children who join the forbidden army through the back door have not been trained, and their physical fitness is naturally not as good as that of the trained children from poor families, so they cannot bear the unified training. When Commander Yang was in charge of the forbidden army, he turned a blind eye to these gentry children. With one eye closed, he would let go of the nobles' children during the training and muddle along. The nobles' children were superior in status, and the guards of the Han clan were unwilling to offend them. Even if they were occasionally bullied by the nobles' children, they would choose to tolerate it as much as possible because they could not afford to offend them. However, the good times did not last long. After Commander Yang was dealt with, Chu Hongii took power, and the nobles all suffered some losses. Because Chu Hongii was strict in running the army, she applied the same tactics from the military camp to the imperial army, treating the nobles and the poor alike equally. No one could get special treatment, so these noble guards who had never experienced hardships complained that they couldn't bear it. They complained and complained under the harsh training for days. Not only were they dissatisfied with Chu Hongii, but they were also dissatisfied with their good performance. The poor guard also had resentment. When grievances last for a long time, it is inevitable that you will find an opportunity to explode. That's why tonight's show happened. Xiejin looked around nonchalantly. There were quite a few people gathered around the training ground, including more than 30 people standing in the training ground, looking at Chu Hongii with some disdain. It's the middle of the night, General Chu should be at home nursing his child. As soon as the sentence came out, the other people burst into laughter. No. The prince's family in Prince Jing's mansion is run by men at home and women at home. At this time, Prince Ji should be at home nursing the child. General Chu is a heroic woman, and she is so valiant. Prince Ji is so lucky. He can live off a gigolo with just a face. It's really enviable. Ha ha ha, Johu, what you said is wrong. I don't envy gigolos. After all, I don't have a face as beautiful as Prince Ji, right? I can't even eat if I want to dash. Aren't you still jealous? If you really have a face as beautiful as a flower, you might enjoy eating more than anyone else. After the words fell, there was another burst of laughter, ha ha ha. Xiejin raised his eyebrows. These people who don't know how to live or die actually dared to shout in front of Chu Hongii. Have they never experienced Chu Hongii's methods? I will say it again. From now on, all those who participated in the fight will run 100 laps around the parade ground. Chu Hongii said in a cold and tough tone. Those who disobey orders will take off their military uniforms immediately and be expelled from the military. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbspeed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix.